is Yusuf Jalali. He is a journalist covering politics in West Asia with a focus on Iran's foreign policy and regional power dynamics. Mr. Jalali, thanks so much for joining me here on the broadcast. I want to start right off. What's the mood in Iran? These protests are no longer peaceful. The protesters, they're even attacking security forces, even attacking government buildings. And then there was that statement which came in from the US president saying that they are locked up and ready to go. How is Iran seeing that message from the US president after the happenings in Venezuela? Is it still being seen as just a rant, as the Supreme Leader said?
Well, of course, many voices in Iran's media and even politics look at this latest incident in Venezuela as an instance of imperialism by the United States. And they see a pattern of how the United States has interfered and intervened in other countries' internal affairs, including Iran itself back in 1953. So it says that it's all about oil, it's not about narcotics and fighting drug trafficking. It's all about oil, and this, whatever comments rise from Mr. Trump himself or his Secretary of State Marco Rubio, those claims and remarks about drug trafficking, fighting narcotics, calling Maduro not a president but a drug dealer. So these are just excuses by the United States trying to, of course, serve its own interests and get its hands on the Venezuelan oil resources. And they argue that the same thing happened in Iran back in 1953 when Iran was facing a coup d'etat engineered by the United States and the UK. And it was all about oil back then, too. In 1953, the first Iranian Democratic Prime Minister was overthrown using a coup d'etat engineered and orchestrated by the United States and the UK. Why? Because Mr. Mossadegh, the then Iranian Prime Minister, called for the nationalization of Iran's oil and called for an end to the British monopoly over Iranian oil resources. And then the coup d'etat happened. He was overthrown, and the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was reinstated back to power. So the same thing is happening right now in Venezuela. This is based on comments by Iranian officials and, of course, Iranian media outlets.
Mr. Jalali, if I may, I want to just keep it focused towards Iran, and that's why I really needed your perspective. To put it more bluntly, do you really feel, or do you consider US, when they say they're locked up and ready to go, can they attempt something similar in Iran?
Of course, Iran is alarmed by that comment by Donald Trump, especially when the United States attacked Venezuela. And of course, Marco Rubio made it clear that the president means what he says, what he talks about, and he implements his words into action, not just words. So here in Iran's political discourse, we can see some alarms raised by some publications, including Kayhan, which is a state-affiliated newspaper. They have said that the same thing might happen to the resistance of access. And they said that it seems that the United States fights and enters into a war with any country that tries to oppose its policies.
Understood.
But those policies, again, are framed by the Islamic Republic as imperialist policies, that undermine the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of countries.
Understood. So when the Supreme Leader said that the US President is a ranting American, there are voices in Iran not just considering this a random rant. There could be action behind it, especially after what we've seen in the last 24 hours in the Caribbean. Let me take it a little further from there, sir. When it comes to Iran, can there be an imposition of martial law given the stark warning that the Supreme Leader has issued to rioters?
Well, the situation is spiraling out of control. What began as simply an economic-driven protest now is turning into riots, violence, confrontations between protesters and police officers, security officers. And it's not just limited to big cities. It's now spreading into other cities and provinces across the country. Now we can say that it's a nationwide protest with instances of fierce clashes between demonstrators and security officers. Of course, the concentration of this violence is along the Iranian western provinces, along the Iranian western borders, which border the Iraqi Kurdish regions, where the elements of PJAK terrorists or separatists are based there. So we've seen reports, heard reports that those separatists, PJAK, which is an offshoot, an Iraqi offshoot of PKK, Kurdish separatists, they have managed to smuggle weapons, firearms into Iran to supply those protesters and try to arm them to create this armed conflict between the security forces and the protesters.
Understood.
And we've seen such images circulating. And this is what has alarmed Iran. It has heavily deployed its security forces, Basij paramilitary forces there to those regions. But now the violence, the fierce violence now is limited to those areas. We see in big cities and towns, including the capital, Tehran, it's yet to see very much violent confrontations between the protesters and security officers.
Understood. Mr. Jalali, thanks so much for making time for us and joining us and giving us the perspective coming in from Iran and what it feels about the happenings in the last 24 hours and what is going on inside Iran right now. That was Yusuf Jalali joining us.